Oh my
Maya
God.
and Chloe were inseparable. They'd been best friends since college, surviving bad breakups, career changes, and everything in between. They were the kind of friends who finished each other's sentences and had a standing weekly brunch date. Then Maya met Leo. Their meeting was something out of a film. Maya, a vibrant graphic designer, had been hired to rebrand a luxury hotel. Leo, the young, visionary tech entrepreneur behind the project, was instantly captivated not by her beauty alone, but by the fierce intelligence in her eyes as she presented her concepts. He asked her to discuss the project over dinner, and that first date was the beginning of a courtship that felt like a continuous, beautiful dream. Leo didn't just date Maya. He curated experiences for her. He remembered her offhand comment about loving classic cinema and surprised her with a private screening of Casablanca in a restored Art Deco theater, complete with a violinist playing during the intermission. He learned she had never been horseback riding and whisked her away for a weekend at a ranch where they rode through misty valleys at dawn. The gifts were not just expensive, they were profoundly thoughtful. For her birthday, instead of just buying her jewelry, he gifted her a hand-bound, blank book made from the finest Italian paper. The first page read, "For the next chapter of your story. I can't wait to read it." Inside was a certificate for a master-level illustration course in Florence, a dream she'd mentioned only once. He didn't just give her things, he gave her dreams wings. He treated her like a queen because, to him, she was one. When she admired a street artist's painting of a Parisian bridge, Leo didn't just buy the painting. He took her to Paris the following month, and they stood on that golden sunset. He filled her apartment with flowers not just on anniversaries, but on Tuesdays, just because. His love was a constant, lavish, and attentive stream, and Maya, who had always been independent and driven, found herself blossoming under its warmth. She wasn't being bought. She was being seen, cherished, and adored in a language she never knew existed. Chloe, at first, was her biggest cheerleader. She'd listen, wide-eyed, as Maya recounted these fairy tale dates. He rented out the entire planetarium for our 3-month anniversary. Maya would gush. The constellations were projected on the ceiling while a string quartet played. It was insane. "It's like he's romancing you from a storybook," Chloe would sigh, a genuine smile on her face. But as Maya's life became a whirlwind of private jets to Greece for a long weekend and spa days in Switzerland, Chloe's life remained firmly grounded. Her dating life was a series of disappointing encounters with men who couldn't remember her coffee order. Her biggest luxury was a new handbag on sale. The weekly brunches became less frequent, and when they did happen, the chasm between their realities felt vast. The fairy tale culminated in a wedding that was featured in a high-end bridal magazine. Leo had arranged for the ceremony to take place in a glass chapel overlooking the ocean at dusk. It was perfection. Chloe, as the maid of honor, felt a piercing mix of joy and a strange, hollow ache as she watched Leo look at Maya, his entire world seeming to orbit around her. The first year of marriage was a continuation of the courtship. Leo's business soared to new heights, and with it, his ability to spoil his wife. He bought the stunning glass and steel house on the hill, and together they filled it with art they collected on their travels. A small sculpture from Bali here, a hauntingly beautiful painting from a Dublin gallery there. Every object held a memory of an adventure they had shared. But by the second year, a subtle shift began. The most desired gift, a child, remained elusive. The third year brought the first rounds of fertility treatments. The fourth year was marked by the silent agony of negative tests, and the fifth year by a deepening, shared grief that even Leo's wealth could not fix. It was in this fifth year that the dynamic with Chloe soured irrevocably. Their brunches, now held in Maya's immaculate, silent kitchen, were strained. Maya's world had shrunk to the four walls of her beautiful house and the desperate hope of a pregnancy. One Tuesday, Chloe arrived, frazzled from a parent-teacher conference and dreading her rent payment. Maya, trying to find a sliver of joy, excitedly showed her the blueprints for a new home spa and meditation garden Leo was having built. "He says it's to help me relax through all this stress," Maya said, her voice thin with a sadness she could no longer hide. That's when Chloe snapped. The words were venomous. Must be a nice distraction, another massive project. Must be nice to just buy a solution for your pain while the rest of us have to just live with ours. The air turned to ice. Maya stared, wounded. Chloe, that's not fair. You know how much we're hurting. Are you? Chloe hissed, standing up, her chair screeching against the polished concrete floor. Because from where I'm standing, you're drowning your sorrows in cash. You have no idea what real struggle is. This perfect house, your perfect husband, your perfect, empty, miserable life. In a blind rage, Chloe stormed into the pristine living room, a room that held the echoes of so much love and hope. She saw the crystal vase from Venice, the framed photos of their smiling faces in Santorini, the delicate ceramic bowl from their trip to Japan. It was all a testament to a life she would never have. She grabbed the Venetian vase and hurled it at the marble fireplace. The shattering was a symphony of her breaking heart. She swept her arm across the console, sending the memories of their adventures crashing to the floor in 1,000 pieces. When she finally stopped, panting, the room was a war zone of their past. Maya stood in the doorway, silent tears carving paths through her makeup, her hand clamped over her mouth. Without a word, Chloe walked out, the slam of the door echoing the finality of their friendship. The lavish gifts turned into payments for fertility treatments. The exotic trips were replaced by stressful doctor's appointments. The shared dream of a child began to strain their perfect world. It was in this vulnerable crack that Chloe's jealousy took root and festered. The day she destroyed Maya's living room wasn't an end, but a terrible beginning. Walking out of that shattered home, Chloe didn't feel remorse. She felt a cold, electrifying purpose. If she couldn't have Maya's life, she would take a piece of it for herself. Her target was Leo. She started subtly. She knew his schedule, thanks to years of friendship with Maya. She began coincidentally showing up at his high-end gym at the same time. The first few times, she was just a sad, apologetic figure. "I miss her so much, Leo," she'd say, her eyes welling up on the treadmill next to his. "I was so wrong. I just want my best friend back." Leo, a man aching for his wife's happiness and feeling powerless to fix their shared grief, was a susceptible audience. Chloe was a link to the vibrant, happy woman Maya used to be. He saw her as a project, a way to perhaps mend the bridge for Maya. Chloe expertly manipulated this. She began sending him articles about dealing with a partner's depression. "This reminded me of Maya," she'd text. "I just worry about her." She positioned herself as the only other person who truly understood the depth of Maya's pain, all while subtly implying that Maya was now too consumed by her sorrow to be the wife he deserved. She graduated from the gym to accidental coffee run-ins. Then she orchestrated a crisis. She called him, sobbing, claiming she was having a panic attack outside her apartment, that the guilt over hurting Maya was crushing her. Worried and feeling responsible, Leo went to her. He sat with her. He comforted her. She leaned into him, her tears soaking his shirt, her words a poisonous whisper. "You're so strong, Leo. She's so lucky to have you. I don't know how she can be so distant with a man like you." The manipulation was masterful. She wasn't just offering sympathy, she was offering validation he wasn't getting at home, all while driving a subtle wedge between him and his wife. The final act of her play came on the anniversary of Maya's father's death, a day she knew was always difficult for the couple. She knew Maya would be withdrawn and quiet. Chloe texted Leo, "Thinking of you both today. It must be so hard. If you need to get out of the house for a bit, I'm here to listen." He took the bait. Exhausted by the heavy silence at home, he met her for a drink. She listened, her hand accidentally brushing his. She mirrored his body language, her gaze full of unwavering admiration. She made him feel like the hero, the misunderstood husband, the strong man burdened by a fragile wife. Later that night, fueled by a shared bottle of wine and his own deep-seated loneliness, the line was crossed. It happened in a hotel room, a transaction of false comfort and calculated seduction. For Leo, it was a moment of profound weakness and shame. For Chloe, it was a victory. She had finally taken a piece of what belonged to Maya. In the cold light of day, the horror set in for Leo. He confessed everything to Maya. The world she had built with him, the fairy tale that had sustained her through 5 years of heartache, imploded. The betrayal was a double-edged sword, piercing her from both her husband and her best friend. The grief was paralyzing. Weeks later, Chloe discovered she was pregnant. A cold, triumphant thrill shot through her. But karma intervened swiftly and brutally. The pregnancy ended in a miscarriage, leaving Chloe alone in a hospital room, the hollow victory turning to ash in her mouth. The shock of the dual betrayal, however, became a crucible for Maya and Leo. In the devastating aftermath, with all lies stripped away, they were forced to communicate with a raw honesty they never had before. They entered intensive therapy, not to save a fairy tale, but to rebuild a real, resilient marriage from the wreckage. They forgave, not because the hurt was absent, but because their foundation of love, though cracked, was still solid. It was in this new space of hard-won truth and vulnerability that a miracle occurred. Maya became pregnant. The joy was different this time. Not the naive joy of a fairy tale, but the profound, fierce joy of a blessing earned after a storm. When Chloe saw the pregnancy announcement, the sonogram photo a stark contrast to her own empty ultrasound, her jealousy finally died. It was replaced by the crushing weight of her own pathetic scheming. She had manipulated, seduced, and betrayed, and all she had to show for it was a soul-deep emptiness. Her confession letter was her final act, not to seek forgiveness, but to unburden herself of a truth too heavy to carry alone. Chloe sat down and wrote a letter. It was not a plea for forgiveness, but a confession. She detailed the corrosive envy that had eaten her alive, the shame of that destructive night, the calculated manipulation of Leo, the resulting pregnancy, and the devastating miscarriage. She sealed the truth in an envelope and sent it, a final, painful unburdening. Maya read the letter in the nursery, the scent of fresh paint and new beginnings filling the air. She cried, for the friend she lost, for the pain her husband had endured, for the tragic path Chloe had chosen. She showed the letter to Leo, and together, they processed the painful, shocking truth. They never responded. Some wounds are too deep, some betrayals too profound. Maya chose to focus on the life growing inside her, on the love that had weathered a terrible storm. She had her miracle, her family, and Chloe was left with the heaviest consequence of all, the silence. It was a constant reminder that the price of her envy was not just a lost friendship, but her own soul, forever haunted by the ghost of what she had done and the life she had thrown away.